Hello everybody, this is Pedro from Agi Games, welcoming you to a playthrough of Violet and the Grumpy Nisse. That's our upcoming title for later this year. And if you don't know anything about this, it's a asymmetric two-player trick-taking game. We do like trick-taking games quite a bit, and we published Hasp in 2018, which is a trick-taking game for 2 to 4 players. But during the pandemic, we were all confined, and it was basically for 2 years. It was just my partner and I. So we were playing around with some ideas, and because it was just the two of us for a long time, so we started tweaking these ideas, and it shaped into this game, which we had published as a print and play game last year, 2020, I think, and but then it just kept on developing and turned into something that we felt was a publishable game, um, and so that's what we'll be officially releasing in Essen 2022. And so we just wanted to kind of show you how the game plays, for you to see whether it's something that you might like. I'm going to simulate playing both players, and of course I will have a second screen here. Actually, that's this cursor here, with which I will manage the opponent's hand and cards and components, and then we will be looking at Violet. Violet is one of the characters in the story, and she is a young girl who lives in this village over here, and she wants to travel through the night all the way up to here to meet with her friend, the friendly troll, Ordep, with whom she wants to go on adventures. They have to do that during the nighttime because, as we know, trolls turn into stone at daylight, so she will start from here. And because she travels at night, she also needs to carry with her a lantern. So as she progresses, its fuel will deplete, and we keep track of that over here. And also, of course, because she's a young girl and traveling on her own through forest and creepy landscapes at night, she will also have to manage her fears, and that's something that we keep track over here with this token on the fear track. And so one of the things we like a lot about this is the concept that, as she travels along the track here, fear will gradually catch up with her, and at some point it merges with the journey track. So it kind of represents her fears materializing and sneaking up on her. And if the fear marker ever um, catches Violet, she panics and loses the game. And on the other hand, of course, as well, if she ever runs out of fuel on her lantern, she will be lost in the middle of the night and not get to the end of the journey and loses the game. So the only way for her to win is to get back here to the end of the track. So the other player will be Torek, which is this little fellow over here on the illustration of the cards. This is the back of the cards. We love the art. And so he's the Grumpy Nisse from the title, and Nisse is like a Nordic gnome, and they usually they live in people's homes, and they do chores, and people leave them food for helping with the household. But he's so grumpy, he's been just kicked out of every household in the village. So he retreated to the forest, which he's made his home, and now is just simply annoyed at the idea that one of the people from the village that he's been kicked out of is venturing through his home, which is not really his home, he just made it his home. So he's deeply offended and will do everything he can to make Violet's journey as miserable as possible. And so he will be the player who will try and get this token move on as quickly as possible for fear to catch up on Violet. So again, if it ever does, he wins the game, or if he manages to cause this to deplete, which is kind of a struggle between the two players as to Violet tries to keep it lit, and Torek at the same time tries to deplete it as much as he can. Um, and if that ever happens, then of course Torek wins, um, and uh, and Violet loses. So, and what we will do here is pretend to be Violet, and this cursor here will be Torek. So what we're using here is playingcards.io, which is the interface that we used for playtesting the game during lockdown with people around the world. And we did this for about 2 years. So this game has been playtested for I think over 2 years now. And so this is the final art as well. This is the final illustration, the graphics on the board. This is what you get in the physical edition. There's final art here as well. Final art, and the tokens, of course, they will be a little bit different on the physical edition. And we still have these four here. They will be placed on the first spot in each of these kind of special areas on the track, especially because they have an icon on them. These ones here, the yellow ones, will be considered to be neutral. We see as we play, we'll see what all of this does. I will not go into the rules in detail, and instead I'll just explain as we go. So we also have what is called the advantage markers here, or tokens, which either player can claim at some point during the game. And how this works, we'll see when it happens. And then there's also these 10, and these are event tiles, and they're all unique, and they belong to Torek. What he will do at the start of the game, he will shuffle the 10 of them. He would look at them face down, draw 5 face down, and then pick 3 that he wants to use for this game. Now that's actually an interesting selection. I think what we will do maybe is this. That might be interesting. I'll explain what these do when they get triggered, and at the end of the video I will talk a little bit more about these and how Torek can use them more as a way to cater towards his preferred playstyle. So if you are playing Torek, you want to use these for adjusting your playstyle rather than, like a solid strategy that gets you through the game. So what he will do then is decide in what order he wants to place them on the board. And I think what I would do if I was Torek was probably something like this. Okay, so what this means is then, of course, as fear advances and moves on or past one of these spots here, they immediately trigger these events, and he will then be able to use them. There's 2 exclamation marks on each one of these 3, which means he has to immediately play them. Some of them would have a little clock here, which means he could have kept them for later use, but Violet would then know what they were. Also, just before we start, what's important to note is that the video is probably going to take about an hour, because I'll be talking a lot about some of the decisions and explaining rules as we go. But when you play this face to face with another player, it will probably, like I would now play it in about 20 minutes. When you play your first game, it will probably take you half an hour. But then as you get better at it, the playtime can reduce to up to about 20 minutes. There's also these slots here. I haven't mentioned them yet. They are called the fear slots, and I will explain what they do and how they function once they actually get into once they get used in the game. So I will now. This is it. So this is the game setup. So it's fairly quick. Mostly Violet can set up the tokens and shuffle the deck while Torek prepares his own event cards, so shuffling, looking, and choosing. And to start the game, I will actually use this one here, and we will place 4 cards face up on the table. And this is it. This is the game setup, and now Violet will go and decide, because Violet is the one preparing, to travel. She actually has initiative, so she'll always start the game. As I said, this is a trick-taking game, so the basic principle will be that players will play 1 card each, and normally who goes first decides on a color. There's 4 different colors, and you can see, so this is mountain, which matches this area here. We got 2 lake cards as well, which match this area here. And then there will be orange cards for this with the mushroom, and pink cards for the crystal caves over here. So as I said, these are neutral, so there will be no cards matching this color here. Um, And so if you don't know trick-taking games, there might be a few terms that you're not familiar with, but I'll explain these as we go. So the basic principle, of course, is one player plays a card, and the other player preferably matches the color, but with a higher value. That's how the player would win. If they can't do that, the player who played first will win the trick or the turn, and I'll show you how that resolves when we play our first cards. So if the first player would have played this one here, and the second player plays this card in response, the first player will still win even though the value is higher. So we got a 9 versus a 4, but because the colors don't match, the value doesn't really matter anymore, and the first color would be the winning card. So that's the basic principle um, of trick-taking games. The trumps come in this game as well, but I'll explain how that works when we get there. So to start the game, Violet then goes first, and she has to decide who picks the first card from this tableau into the hand, which is something that's quite unique as well. So that's different from trick-taking games. Normally you would shuffle a deck and deal out cards face down, and you wouldn't know what cards your opponent has. But from the stack of, in this case, 36 cards, if they're all in play, you kind of had a good estimate of card distribution. But in this game, we're actually constantly drafting the cards from the tableau into our hand. So you always have a good idea of what the cards are that your opponent is holding. And that's where these abilities are really important, as you see here, for example, because they allow you to get things from the deck without your opponent knowing what it is, and kind of shuffling your hand a little bit around. So Violet will have to choose who picks first. So she would choose herself because there's a 9 here. That's the highest card. So there's 4 different colors, and they range from 1 to 9, 1 card each. And so she will go first and draw this here into her hand and immediately replace the card. So then Torek will have an opportunity to choose his first card. This is an interesting one because the power of the 1 is to defeat any 9, and it doesn't matter what the color of the 9 is. As long as these 2 cards are played in the same turn, the 1 will always win. So he'll take this because that makes Violet's, so our 9, quite vulnerable. And this is a special card as well. It's a very important card, especially to Violet. It's a wild card, and it's exactly the middle value. So from 1 in the range of 1 to 9, 5 is right in the middle, and this is really important, and you'll understand later why that is. So this card is again special because as long as we're in this neutral zone here, it'll match whatever card your opponent plays, right? So this has the 4 colors in it, and it doesn't matter whether it was played first or second, it'll always match the card, except when Violet is in these areas here. Then it'll always match that color, and this again is really important. We'll learn more about this as we play. So for Violet, I think we would go with a 5 because that's a very useful card. It's very flexible. And then now Torek gets to choose his second card. So he will match her 5 and replace. And this is an interesting card. Again, 7 is a fairly... Because at this point, Violet, again, has to choose who takes the third card first. So she could say, Torek, take your first card, take your third card, and then we would take our third card. But I think we will... Because we know that Torek hasn't gotten any pink cards yet. So this is actually a pretty strong card. And the only one that could match would be the wild card he just took into his hand, but that's a lower value. Okay, and so Torek takes his third card. That's this one here. It is a good one. Okay, so now we don't really have got anything special for us, and we'll let Torek pick his fourth card first. He's already got a 1, so he doesn't want to clog up his hand with the second one. Just to intimidate our 9, but instead he'll take the 2. We like the ability of the 2. Actually, the ability of the 4 is pretty good too, because the 4 would allow a player to swap a card in the hand with a card from the discard pile. Now he knows that we got the 9, so if we ever get to play the 9 and win, he could then in the next turn play this just to recover the 9. So that could be an interesting one, but I'll go for the 2 for now. That's for Torek, so we'll take this one here, replace it, and then we get, again, a choice. So, not super, I think we'll take probably... I think we'll take the 3 maybe. The 3 would allow us to look at the top 5 cards from the draw deck and keep one of them in our hand. So this gives us a bit of more choice. And this is it. So we will play with a hand of 4. So it's a very, very small hand. If you know trick-taking games, we usually start with a fairly big hand of usually around 10 cards. And then as you play the cards, your hand becomes smaller and smaller. But as you do, you eliminate cards that have been played, so you have a better and better idea of what it is that your opponents are holding. Whereas with this one, we're constantly rotating. So you see, we've still got 24 cards in the deck. There's 4 in the tableau. We play a card, draft a card, reveal a card. So the 4 cards is a constant number of cards in our hand, and we're constantly rotating them around. Okay, so Violet goes first. She's the one starting this whole event between herself and Torek. So she needs to decide on a card that she wants to play. Now, at this point, we have a really good idea. We know what Torek's holding. It's much harder to keep track of these things on this interface, and especially with me talking all the time. But again, when you play face to face, this is much more intuitive and faster. So you won't forget much of what your opponent is doing. Things become much muddier when your opponent starts using effects on the cards to swap around. And okay, so what we'll do, we know he has got the 1, so we don't want to play this one. If we play the 5, he'll play the 8. He doesn't have any card matching this one, so what we'll do is we start with this one. And so Torek can play. As I said, he doesn't really have anything and he can play. So what he'll do right now is actually play this card because he's interested in the effect right now. So we win the trick. What this means is we move a space. And this is basically like keeping track of your score in a more traditional trick-taking game. We're getting closer to the end. So we move a space, but because we moved, we also lose 1 unit of fuel on our lantern, because that's how long it took us to get from one spot to the next. And so with this ability here, we are allowed to look at Torek's hand. And the way this works then, so I'll put these go to the discard pile, and now Torek would have to reveal his hand to us. 2 and 3. And he also gets to use now his own ability, which is this card here. What it says is he draws 3 cards, and these we don't get to see. He draws 3 cards into his hand, and then, so he now is holding 6 cards, and of these 6, he has to choose 2 of them to discard. So what he'll do is he'll get rid of this one, and he'll get rid of this one here. So, and now that we've seen what he had, we know half of his hand. So this goes here, this goes here. And he's holding 4 cards. So that means we take one, and he is not going to redraw anything from here. Again, not great. By the way, the discard pile normally should be face down, but it'll be easier. I'll just keep it like this because we're just simulating the game, and it'll be in this interface. It's just easier for me to use this ability later on. And so what we will do is we have to draw a card from here. We cannot draw a blind card from the deck, so that's not allowed. And I think we'll take this one here for the effect. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so it's our turn again. We saw him discard 1. Did he discard a 1? I think he did discard 1. 2. Oh, we need to shuffle these actually. So, and then yes, we got the 4 cards, so it's our turn, and so we would assume he still has the 1. He wouldn't have discarded it, so I'll play the 5. And the 5 is wild, so he can play anything to match this. And what he'll do then is playing an 8. So he wins the trick because, of course, it's matching the color. So there are no effects, so the 8 doesn't have an effect. The effect of the 5 is being wild, so there's nothing else that we need to resolve. So the way we resolve this is now quite different. So first of all, Violet still travels, but it took her longer to get to there because Torx is messing about. So what happens is that she actually loses 2 units of light. And these cards, instead of being discarded, they actually go to the fear slots instead. So this goes face down onto the fear slot. And for now, nothing happens. So if he wins again, the next 2 cards, they go here, which means they have to slide down. And then when he wins again, there's no more space, so this one drops off. And we resolve it, and this is how fear advances. But for now, there's nothing happening. So Toric wins, which means he gets first choice now. And he might go for... maybe this one here. I don't think... yeah, it's not quite choice. Oh, that's a shame. So we didn't really get anything particularly good. So maybe... tricky. So maybe we'll just take this one. The color's coming up. Now, we're in an important spot here, because there's one of these tokens that we placed here at the start of the game, and these are helpers. Ordeb sent these out to help Violet find her way, and if Violet wins this turn, she will be allowed to move without losing any light, any fuel, because she can see this helper from a distance, so she'll be much faster getting there. But if she loses it, then she missed out on this opportunity and loses 2 units of fuel, like in the previous turn. So Torque will have to decide what he wants to play, and to be fair, his hand isn't great, so he will. I think he wants to hold on to these ones. He will just play this one here. And it's unfortunate to us because it's not a great card, but we still can't beat it. However, we will be able to play this one without taking a big hit and use its ability. And that'll be useful to us because our hand isn't great at the moment and we want to improve it. But because we lost, we also lose this opportunity here. We have to move, and we have to lose 2 units of light. Now, Torque wins the trick, so he goes first. So I sometimes say trick, and that just means, and every time we resolve the cards that have been played, that's kind of referred to as a trick if you're not familiar with it. I'll try to remember to say turns. So he wins a turn and gets to resolve his effect first. That means he gets to choose one of these two cards and swap them with one in his hand if he wants to. So he would take it in secret, so we wouldn't be able to see this normally. And then he would put this one back, which I will not show you, so that you don't know. And then we get to resolve our effect, which is to draw 1, 2, 3 cards. It's a very good card. This is a good card, so we have to return 2 of these. We'll get rid of this one, and this is a good card, but it's not going to be super useful right now. Oh yeah, maybe he took the 7, right? Because we wouldn't, I kind of have an idea, so we'll hold on to that one. We put these ones back and shuffle the stack. So now that we resolve this, these go here. So you see they go to the first slot. It's taken, so we have to slide it down, and this one comes in and goes face down. So Torque has to pick a card to take into his hand, and he'll take this one here because it matches the color of the area that Violet is in. So what happens now is from this moment on, the cards of this color, they will be trump. What this means is that cards of this color will always win any other card that doesn't match the color. So unlike what I explained at the start of the game, so if we were to play this one first and then Torque plays this one, we would still win even though this is a 9 because it didn't match our color. But if instead he was to respond with this one, he would win because we are in this zone here. This is now what's usually called trump. So it's the strongest color in the game for as long as Violet is in this in the lake area. And as she transitions on to the next one, then orange will become the strongest color, so trump. So this is a very important rule in the game, of course. So this was here. It's Torque's turn. He doesn't have a great selection at the moment, so what he will do is play this one, hoping to lure out maybe a big a trump. And of course, this is a great opportunity for us to get rid of the 9, because if he still holds the 1, we don't want to get that on our fear stack here. Okay, so that means we win, and so we actually have a choice now. So whenever Violet wins a trick, there's no effects to be resolved. So whenever Violet wins a trick, she has a choice to either move 1 and lose 1, or she can stay put and instead, so she's resting and she's recovering 1, 2, 3 units of light, fuel. And that's what we'll do now, because this will run out pretty quick, and then she'll be under a lot of pressure towards the end of the game. The flip side of this is that when she does this, if there's still one of these tokens attached to the zone, then, and each one of them has one of these tokens, then that token will go to Torque. And what he can do with this is to discard the tableau and refill it, just to see if he has a better choice than what's given at that point. If we were to just dash through an entire zone, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then move on to here, we would get that token. But that means we're also not refilling the lantern, of course. But this is a fairly good point for us to be, because the lantern is almost full. We already advanced a little bit, so we were able to recover some of the hits that we took with losing 2 of the turns. But this is a problem. So this started fairly early, so that's going to be a challenging game for Violet, I think. Anyway, so we win, so that means we get a choice, and there's nothing super here, but we will take this one. Now the reason why we want to take this one is not only because orange is coming up here, but it's also because we got this 6, and the 6 has a very important ability, which is the shield, which means it cannot be trumped. So it cannot be beaten by the color that's the strongest at this point. And we wouldn't want Torek to take this if we didn't. Because if we want to play this now, so if he took the 9, then we would definitely lose it to him. So hopefully, okay, that's great, and Torek can now choose. So he's not too fussed right now about using this token, and instead he will take a 3. He wants to use that ability. Okay, so that's a good card. Alright, so we go for this. We play a 6, and he can still play, so he could still play this card if he had it, for example, and so it's the same as this color here, so it means it should beat any other card of any other color, so any card of any other color, but because we're shielded and played first, it doesn't, so we would win. So the only 3 cards that can beat the 6 is the 7, 8, and the 9 of the same color. So it's a pretty strong card. And luckily, Turk does not have anything that he can beat us with, so he will actually play the one that he just took, so that he can use the ability. And the ability allows him to look at the top 5 cards in the draw deck and pick one. But before we do that, we will decide to move on, lose 1. And he will now get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He has to pick one of these, and he'll take this one here and put the other ones back in the same order he took it from. 1, 2, 3, and 4. These ones are not shuffled. So these then go to the discard pile, and it's our turn again. Oh, to draw a card from here. We'll take this one because it's still a strong color, so we want that. And we played the 9, so unless he took the 8 now, I can't remember whether we had the mint 8. So I think what we'll do is we will play the 7, because if he does have the 8, the difference of value isn't great, and I'll show you what this means in a bit. So we play this one here, and Tarek would have to have the 8 of this color, but he doesn't. So what he will do is, will he play this one? He will play this one. He'll play this one here. And so what happens here, again, quite interesting, because this card has an effect, but because it's being played in the lake zone, it will not trigger. So basically every card has 2 effects, which is the one printed on it in this box down here, and its color. If you use a card for its color, so as a trump, you're not allowed to use its printed ability. So because that's our case, we will not be allowed to look at Torek's hand, but he will be allowed to look at ours. That's already here, so we're not going to do that, but we will move on here and lose 1, and then discard these. And it's our turn to pick a card, and we will, there's a few good cards here, so I think we'll go for this one. And then it's Torek's turn to choose a card. And there's nothing great here for him, so I think it's a good timing to use the token here to get rid of all these. Because we're getting into the orange. There's a 1 orange, but there have been no 9s really. And the ones he's got, the ones that came. There's our 9, of course, but he doesn't remember that. And also, it's the same color, so that will be a problem once we get into that zone. But this is a great card for him because we're just getting there. So he takes that one. Excellent, so it's our turn, and we don't have a lot of choice. We could play the 8, but you know, it's very likely he's been piling up on blue cards. I say blue, I mean the mint colored here for the leg. And so that's risky. I think probably the thing we do is to play this one and see if we can get something from the discard pile. So for now, Torek will then play this one here, I think. This is a good card for now. Okay, so he wins, which means, again, we lost this one here. We move one, we lose two. 1, 2. And then this resolves. So I'll leave this one face up so we don't forget about it. This one has to slide down, so drop off. This one slides down, make space for this one here. And now we have to resolve this here. So we would reveal the cards at this point and see what's the difference in value. So it doesn't really matter who played what card. We won't remember in most cases anyway. But what matters is that Torek won these tricks. So it doesn't matter what card he played or he won with. But the difference in value is what matters. So in this case, 8 minus 5 is 3. So fear starts advancing. 1, 2, 3. And this is how that works. So for Torek, it's super important when he wins a trick, he wants the difference in value to be as wide as possible so that the fear marker advances. Whereas when Violet loses a trick, especially if she knows that she's going to lose a trick, and if she goes second, she'll want to play a card that's as close as possible to Torek's value. And that's why the 5s are super important, because it's right in the middle of the values 1 to 9. So if she doesn't really know what to play, the 5 is always a good option, because even if he plays a 9, then it will never be too much of a difference. And that's why the 9s are super risky for Violet, because if she does play a 9 first and Torek happens to have a 1, then that would be a difference of 8, which would be a huge increase in her fear. And we like that because it makes thematic sense as well, because she was confident in playing a 9, and then she just got tricked by a miserable 1, and it crushes her confidence. And so even that makes thematically sense to us. Okay, so we still get to use this ability here. So we will swap a card in our hand with a card from the discard pile. So we will be looking at this. The 5s are good. Will be orange is okay, but it's a 1. We're not interested in this one. Let's see if we get something interesting here. Oh, that's actually quite good. No. This is the one Torek had discarded, actually. So I think we go for that one because we're in the orange zones in the forest with the mushrooms. And we'll return, I think we'll return this one. No, this one's actually good to match. Okay, so we'll return this one, and Torek wouldn't know what this card is. Okay, and then Torek gets to choose one, and he'll go for, I think, the 5. And then we go for, we'll go for the 3. And replace. Alright, so Torek's turn, so he doesn't really know everything in our hand. But what he can do is this, because we've been just out of the lake zone, so a lot of these cards have been played. So it's very unlikely that any of us has, and there's an 8 in the tableau, so the 7 and the 9 can beat the 6, but I think, if I remember correctly, they might have been played already. So he would play this one here, which would be a good move. We could play the 3, but that would be a difference of 6, and also, because it's actually the color we're in, we won't be able to use its ability. So that's not a great choice. So I think we play the 8, just to mitigate the difference a little bit. And since we can't use the ability anyway, we'll go for that, just to mitigate here a little bit the fear factor. So we lost, which means we advance 1, we lose 2. So at this point here, our lantern has gone quite dim, which means the darkness is kind of zooming in on Violet, and every time fear advances, it goes by +1 from this point on. So this will be, if she can, it'll be a good opportunity to start recovering her lantern, to get her back behind this penalty point. Okay, so there's no other effects that need to be resolved. This one will have to drop off, slide down, untaken. And there's a 4 minus 2 plus 1, so that's 3. And 3 makes 1, 2, 3. So now Tarek will have to use this tile here. And this is a fairy ring. Fairy ring means that it's like a mushroom circle that you often find in forests. And in folklore, if you stepped into one of them without protection, you'd be drawn into kind of a frenzied dance with fairies. And after a while, you'd come out of it thinking that you've been dancing for like a few hours and exhausted. But then you look around and everything changed, and you find actually that decades have passed. Your children were grandparents, and things like that. So this will function in a similar way. So Torek will have to place this somewhere. So he actually has got a few interesting cards still for now. So but there's also this coming up. So I think he'll put it here, actually. Maybe here, just so he can prepare for it. So this is a little bit of guesswork as well for him, which is pretty challenging. But what he will do, because he's got first choice, he'll get the 7 here. So which will be a high card in this area. And what happens with this one is when Violet steps on it, she'll need to win to move on. If she loses the turn, she'll have to stay here and still lose lanterns. So it's that idea of being caught in this circle, in this dance, and time still moving on. And so yeah, so that's what he will do. And then he gets first choice with the cards, and he will take the 7 in preparation of what's coming ahead. And then we will, it's not great, it's not super, okay, so we'll take this just to have one of the mountain cards in our hand for now. Oh, that's interesting. So if we can get this one, that would be great. Torek's turn, so he will go for, I don't think he knows that we would have gotten the 9. I can't recall. So he'll go for 7 because he needs to try and keep control of the game. But, and because it's the same color as the zone we're in, he will not be able to look at our hand, which is great for us. So we will now, of course, respond with a 9, which gives us the game back. And I think we will actually use it. Oh, this is tricky. Do we want to continue? Yeah, we will. We kind of want to have this here as well. So if we take a break to move backwards, and I'm confident about the 6 here, because the 7 is out, the 9 is out. I think we have already played the 8. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll stop. Do we stop? No, I think we continue. We continue, and then we'll try and take a break up here. Okay, so these go to the discard pile. Tarek will not get anything. And we want this one here because the color is coming up. Okay, so he's got a good one. The 6s are always very interesting cards, so we'll take that. And okay, that's good for us. So again, 7 it was the 7 and the 9 were gone, so we still have this card, which is fairly high, and hoping that he doesn't have the 8, which he does not. So what he will do, though, will he? Yes, he will take this one here. And that's another great thing, I think, is that even though we're past lake zone, the lake cards, other than the 8 and the 9, even the 8 and the 9, don't really become obsolete because you will want to use. If you are Torek, there's no penalty for you losing a trick, right? Like in the case for Violet, because if we lose a turn, then our fear increases. But there's no such thing for Torek, so he has no issues with losing a turn with a low card. What he wants to do is use the ability to be able to improve his hand. So we win, which means we move on, and we got this helper here, so he's helping us to move a little bit faster, which means we do not lose the light. And because we rush through this zone without any breaks, we get the token, which is great. It's very useful to us because we have very little hand management abilities other than the ones in the cards. And Torek, he's a little bit better at that because he doesn't get these penalties for losing turns. but then he will have a look at 5 cards on the top of the deck. So 1, 2, and now the deck is empty, so we get these here. The way this works here is that we will flip the stack, shuffle, and now he can draw. So he had 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so let's see, what will he get? He doesn't want this one. Definitely doesn't want this one. This one is interesting. This one is interesting. I think he'll take this one here maybe. So these go back. And because of the ability, he ends up with 4 cards in his hand, which means we only get to draw. Now this is good because we get to pick this one here. Now we don't want to play this card. It's our turn. We don't want to play this card because, of course, he might have a 1, especially from now, looking at the top 5 cards. So we want to play safe, and we are probably going to play, I think, this one here. It's really risky to play the 9. I feel tempted. Like, I would feel tempted. I know, of course, whether I can or not play it, but I would feel tempted. But if he does have a 1, and the deck just got shuffled on top of that, so the discard pile. So all the cards are back there. So he might have gotten a 1 out of those 5 in total. So I will not play this. I'll play this one instead. If he does have a higher card, it will not be a big difference in value. So it's a tolerable loss. So, and he will play this one. He actually just got it out of the 5 cards, I think. No, he had it from before, from the table. Okay, so he wins. Nobody gets, so this one, of course, he matches the color, so it doesn't matter, and then he doesn't get to use the effect because that's the color we're on. But we will have to move on to the fairy ring, which is terrible, and lose 1, 2 units of light. And then fear will move. I'll use his. So here, here, and we have a look at the difference is 5 minus 4 is 1 plus 1 is 2. So that's just about 1, 2. Again, he has to use this immediately, gets triggered. And what he will do is place this on here. So from now on, the crystal caves will have 1 additional space. So this will be 4 spaces long instead of just 3. So wherever you put it on, you cover 1 space, and it's replaced with 2, and they count as the same color. So pink, or crystal caves, mountains, mushrooms, and lakes. You could also place it here if you wanted, and then there's just 2 additional, so an extra neutral. But I think we're going to go for this one because his hand is looking that way, which we would suspect, of course. So these go off. All right, and it's his turn to choose a card. We are here, so he's going to go for, well, but this is coming up, so he'll take this one here. And we will. So there's not a great selection for us. So what we will do is actually take one of the 8s just to match a high value card, again to mitigate the difference here. We replace, and it's Torik's turn this time. So he will go for, let's see, what will he go for? Oh, okay. So he will go for this one here. That's what he plays, and that's great for us because we can get rid of the 9, just in case he holds a 1. And this is, so no further abilities. It's actually not a great, well, I mean, it's good that we win, but because we're on the mushroom, we really don't want to rest to recover. We'll have to move on to get past it. So even if he doesn't really get to take a full advantage of the circle, the fairy ring, it still is an important, because it puts the pressure on us. We just been negated the ability to recover, which at this stage is actually critical already. So then, did I lose one? I can't remember. Well, if I didn't, that's all right. So that's what happens when you talk all the time. Okay, so but we got this one, which means we get to choose a new one, and there's not a lot of great choices. So we will actually use this one here because the choices are deplorable. This Nisse is grumpy beyond belief. I'll do this with him so that you don't see the amplification of the art. Okay, 5 is already a little bit better. That 9 is not super useful. Oh, okay. So we take the 5. If he takes the 5, which he will, that's alright. So if we both play 5, the first one wins because it wasn't beaten by the second one. And I think that's just the one. Just again, because we don't really know what he's got. If it does have a higher than 5, it'll not be too wild if we lose it. So we play this one, and he will. He will. So he would play. I think he would play this one here, just to have a look at our hand before we go into the pink zone, so into the crystal caves. But again, so he plays this one. And so we have a choice again, move on and not lose, or stay put and recover 3. But we don't really have much that we can play here. We get this one. Oh no, we get this one here. Oh, this is a tricky one. So he would now look at our hand, which is important to him. We win this one. So I think we move on just so we get to use this, so we don't lose a light. But now pink is going to be a long stretch here for us. We'll just have to take this one, I think, just to hope and get something. And then Torek will use this one here, because that'll allow him to get that 7 back, or so, which is critical now. Okay, it's our turn. We do not have great cards right now. I think we'll have to take the hit. So we either lure out a one of his trumps, one of his crystal cave cards, or but we won't be able to use the ability, or we'd use this one, which is the same value, and I think I'll do this just to give us the opportunity to get maybe something a little bit better here. So we play this one here, and he'll want to play as far away a value as he can. Boom, which is the 9. Just to create that difference of 6 plus whatever the penalty at that point. It's a huge increase, of course, for the fear, which we have been able to kind of keep in check, but this is going to be a tricky one. So we will get to use the ability, but before we do, we have to move 1. We have to lose 2, so that's a +2 penalty now. We have to reveal this one here, so that's 8 minus 6 is a 2, plus 2 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. So he has to use this now. Before we do, I just want to clear this up. And this one here, he will put on any space that Violet hasn't reached yet to change its color to a different space. And he can put it here. I think we'll do that because the way his hand is looking, he does have the upper hand on pink. So he used this to keep crystal caves going for another stretch. So this is a long crystal cave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus the usual 3. Oh, and apologies, but because we breeze through, we actually get this one here. So, yeah, it's a tough one. And of course, making the path a little bit longer here, just the 1 space, means we have to manage the lantern a little bit better too. Okay, so we now get to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, pooh, not great. So, this might be interesting. I think we don't really need this one here because we got the 8. So, and when you have the 8 and the 9 of the same color, the 8 is actually more powerful because it cannot be beaten by the 1. Now, even though this one will go back, we know we have that. We know we have that, or when it's coming, and the torque does not have it. We might. I don't think. Well, we'll keep this because it's just the color that we are on at the moment. It would be good. We keep one of the 8s just to match numbers here for the fear track. And the 2s, we already have one, so we don't need another one. We want to keep this one. I think we're going to get rid of this one here. Okay, so now I have to go back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, And that's our ability. So we got 4 cards. We don't need to draw another one. But Torek gets to play, and he will maybe take this one here, just to have a look at our hand and replace this. So I might have made a few mistakes up here, which happens because I'm talking all the time, of course. So forgive me if I missed one of the lantern movements. It's still pretty tight at the moment. It might not look like this, but you'll see as we get closer to here, it'll be a pretty tough end game. So it's we go here. It's Torek's turn. He goes, and he's got a pretty good hand. So the 8 is there, which he just played, I think. So he'll play. Oh no, that just dropped off here. He actually played another card. So he'll play this one here, and we have nothing much to counter. So we could play the 3, but then it's the difference of 6. We can't play the 8, and that's kind of what we had the 8 for. It's just to mitigate the differences in value. So we can't really match this. He wins again. So boom, 1, 2. These guys go up there. Slides down, slides down. So see, all this managing all these little bits here is a lot more cumbersome than when you play the physical version. Okay, so that's not too bad. So 7 minus 6 is 1, plus 2 is 3. 1, 2, 3. So once it gets here, now it will merge with the journey track and start pursuing her all the way to the end. And we'll see what happens. My prediction is that probably Violet's going to lose because she started losing turns pretty early in the game. But she's been managing well the value differences as well. So that's it's going to be tight, I think. And so we now lost this one, so he goes first, and he doesn't have a great selection of cards. So I think he'll go for the 2, just to give him again a little bit of flexibility. So okay, so and then it's our turn, and this is not super, so I think we use this marker here. It's terrible because this is a long stretch, so we probably will have to rest here until get this one. We'll see how this turns out. So I'll do this with his, just to avoid those cards. Hop. Let's hopefully get something good. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, it's terrible. Oh well, okay, we'll take the 6 because it cannot be trumped. And it's Tarek's turn, so we're still in pink. He doesn't have a lot of choice, so he goes for. So he's not sure he can win, so I think probably what he wants to do at this point is make sure he wins the next one instead. And so this gives us an opportunity to use a low card to do this. And so we win. And I think what we do at this point is go 1, 2, 3. And the problem with this at this point, of course, is that when Fear catches up with us, we're not putting any distance between the two of us. And it doesn't look like much, but when he starts moving on this track, visually it just looks a lot faster than on this track here. So we stay put, and because we stay put, he gets this. But then also he will get to look at the discard pile. To see what he wants. So we wouldn't be able to see this, of course, but he would want a high crystal cave like this one here. And because he can look through the whole thing, he can actually check if the 9 is there as well, which then gives him the certainty that we don't have it, and that his 8 is, it's not there. So even if it was, so he can't take it anyway. So he'll take this one here, and he'll put back, I think, maybe this one. I'll not show it to you. And then it's our turn. Yes. So this goes to the discard, and we get to draw a card first. So again, not great, not great. We might still take the 9, but then he can take the 1. Oh, it's not good. So maybe, well, we'll take the 9 just because we got that 6 there. We don't want him to get it now. And then he chooses, I think maybe this, just to fish another card from there. Okay, so we will, of course, we will play this one here because it cannot be beaten by Crystal Cave cards here, thanks to the shield. So he does not have much here that can use. So I think he'll go for this effect again. So we win, hooray! So we lose one, we move one. It's time to move on now. So technically here, if we win every trick, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we lose every trick, so 4, you'll go 1, 2. No, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The exclamation mark here means that there's like a little bridge here, it's the abyss, and if we don't win the trick, it's like this effect, we can't move on. She's too scared to pass the bridge with Torek doing all these shenanigans around her. So she has to win the trick, but also because there's the fire, he works like one of the helpers. She wouldn't lose a unit of light. So even if she's here on the last spot, she wins it, she wins it. Okay, so these now, he gets to use the ability again, right? So let's see. And he would go on. So he's looking for pink ones again. I know what this one is. It's not what he's looking for. Well, one of the 5s might be something good. If there's a 6 there, that might be good too. It's a low pink. Oh, this one here, because the 8 is in his hand. Oh, you wouldn't have known. Oh, no, but you did know that. But I think that's the one. Yeah, okay. I think that's fine. We got the... We already know the 9 isn't there. The 8, he got it from before. We wouldn't know that, of course, but he has to put one back, and that's going to be this one here. I'll show it to you. And then these go back as well. We won the trick, so we get first choice. And, well, these aren't super good, but we'll go with the 7 because it's a high card and the neutral zone is coming up. So there will be no trumps. So we flip and shuffle. We replenish. And I think for Tarek it'll be similar as well. So, because these ones are here. Coming up. That's unfortunate. Because we won't be able, if we take the 8, we won't be able to play it, of course. Alright, so it's our turn, and we will. We don't have a lot of. So we could play. There's no great choice. I'm feeling inclined to play a 7, just so we can have a look at his hand, and he could beat it with a low value Crystal Cave card. But I think we actually played a few ones, so they probably shuffled here. I can see, of course, what he's got in his hand. I'm just trying to not remember stuff I see. So, but I think I would have played this one, even because we would be allowed to look at his hand, and this is very useful, especially during this stretch here. So it's his turn, and what he will do is he wants to play a value as far away as possible from this one. So he'll play this one here. Right, and this card actually is not very good for the upcoming bit here because it'll just match any of the cards that we would have played. It's great during this segment here because it's always trump. But anyway, so we do not win. In this case, it's trump, of course, so he gets it, which means we have to move one, and this is still crystal. We have to lose 2. Oh, 1, 2, and of course, I'll leave this one on top. We have to slide this off, slide this one down, this goes here, and we reveal, ooh, a 9 minus 3, that's a 6 plus 2, it's 8, that's crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this tile, of course, has no effect on our fear marker, so boom, suddenly, this one, well, he'll have to move on top of over the 2 spots there. But there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps difference, and there's a +2 penalty here already, so it's looking pretty mean. And of course we then would be allowed to look at Torek's hand. 1, 2, and 3. And we then, so he is loaded with the pink, so this is terrible for us. So he will take the 8 because he's got the 9. So it makes the 8 stronger. And then I think we will just take the 1 because of the 9. Alright, okay, so he will now. So, two pink and so two crystal caves and two mountain cards. The mountain cards will be the super strong for what's coming up. Okay, so it's his turn. So I think he'll just go with the pink 8. I think that's his best bet at this point. We haven't really got anything here that can help us. What we'll do is play the 9 just to mitigate again, which makes us advance 1, 2. It's going to be so tight. Okay. Then these drop off. This slides down. These come here. And 8 minus 6 is 2, plus 2 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you see the problem now, right? So we can't really afford to rest much. Even if we lose this one, we need to win this to win the game without having to rest. But if we lose uh, the next two, then yeah, so it's going to be really tricky. But most probably, if we rest, then fear will catch up with us. So fear is kind of there to put the pressure on you not to rest too often, because it just won't be putting any distance. And because this penalty is past one rest, you know, so you'll always it's too risky. So Torek wins, so he gets first choice, and he has this token here, but I think he'll go for the 7 because you know the 8 just came out there. So he'll take this one because it's a high value card for this, and then we have got nothing much. I think what we'll do is probably take the 4 just to go through because there's the 8 here which it just took. We take the 4 and we got the 3, we got the 2. I think that's what we'll do. Okay, so Torek's turn. He'll probably win this one again. So he will play the 8 because he's had the 9. We know that. And we have decided. So the difference right now is not so important anymore because it's unlikely that this card, whatever cards go up here, it's unlikely that they actually drop off the board. So we're not bothered about the difference. What we do want is get a better uh, hand. And I think what we'll do is just play this one here so that we can actually get, you know, potentially 3 different cards onto our hand. And this, of course, provided we won't be caught by our fear. 1, 2, which is already 1, 2, and then Okay, so we'll see what happens. So this one goes here. I'll leave it here because we want to use the ability if we don't lose the game. And I think that's it. 7 minus 5 is 2, plus the 2 from here is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 exactly. This is terrible. Okay, but this was very tight. So she was running out of light. Fear caught up on her on the last spot. It would have been tough to win this trick here, which if she didn't, but we didn't know. So what would have happened if we hadn't lost? So if fear would have stopped here, we would have been able to use this ability. And let's just see what it would have compared to. His hand. So we would have definitely kept this one, I think. We would have kept this one because now we need high cards and we also need a little bit of diversity. So this one and this one. So we would have gotten rid of these two. And then Torek would have gone for this one here, of course, I think. So he would have had the 9 now would be a little bit risky for him. The 5, he wouldn't play that, I think. Probably the 7 or the 7, yeah. So we would not have been able to respond to either of them. So we would still have lost the game, but it's very close. So card manipulation is super important. I think maybe if we had gotten one more of these, that we might have done the trick. But that's it. Violet and the Grumpy Nisse. So a win for Tarek. With a very dramatic endgame. He made it pretty hard for us. We were lucky not being stuck here, but I think actually, even though we didn't get stuck here, it made a difference in terms of, because I had planned to do a recharge here just to get, you know, behind the penalty, and it's a big deal because if we had, actually the fear token wouldn't have advanced that much that early. So we might actually have had a different outcome if it hadn't been for this one here. Very important. But then he made the path longer, and he made the crystal cave longer. So in all, it was a yeah. was a challenging game for Violet. I think for both actually. It was a very, very tight game just because it was really the end of the end here. Very good. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed this. There's quite a bit that you can do here, and so what is interesting about this is that, of course, both characters have a different approach to the game. Violet is only interested in how she loses a turn because she wants to mitigate the difference in value of a lost trick. Whereas the opposite is true for Torek. What he's interested in is in by how much he wins the trick, and because that will determine how far and how quickly his events will come into play and how fast the fear marker moves. But also what is interesting from Violet's perspective is that she can control the length of the game a little bit, so she could theoretically she can just breeze through. She'll have to rest at some point, but if she has a strong hand, with a particular color, and when she is in that zone, she can actually rest multiple times because she's got the hand for it. Whereas Torek might be preparing for the next zone, here already, and he's just kind of starting to collect mountain cards. So Violet goes like, hold on, well, I'm going to rest then and stay here a little bit longer because I can get this card from the tableau, and you haven't got any in the meantime. So she can control that, which helps her with the light and helps her with keeping, control of the game. On the other hand, because Torek isn't really bothered with the the uh, the the weight of the loss, he has better opportunities to improve his hand with playing like these low value cards that allow you to look at the deck to pick a card or draw three and put two back, etc. So these cards are really useful for him. Um, and it was difficult for me to simulate, especially this one here, the look at your opponent's hand, because I was constantly watching both hands on the screens here. But it's a super important because sometimes you know part of the hand, but just part of the hand is still tough to play with. So when you play this card, and it gives you all that information, huge, it's a big, big deal. And especially for Violet, so she can try and keep control over how she rests and all those things, and of course the tiles. And then the event tiles, there's a bunch of them, so there's 10 different ones. Actually, let me just recall here. Let me go get these here, and there's like different things you can do. This was quite interesting because this was actually board manipulation. Uh, you know, make the path longer, change the color of the spots. So that's quite interesting. This one is a little bit of both. It theoretically makes the path longer because it gets stuck here and loses light. Um, in our specific case, which was really interesting, it's just deprived us from resting. We would not, even if it was critical, like if it was in a situation like this, I probably still would have wanted to move on to here, just get rid of this, not risk staying stuck there. And then each of these, they do something different. So you have different combinations of stuff that you can do. You can have even more hand manipulation with these cards. This one is actually the same as these ones, but it's one of the events, so it's just Torek only gets to use these. And if you hold multiple of these, you can discard the tableau multiple times in the same turn until you get what you want. And with this one, Torek can hold one more card for one turn. So he uses this to draw up to 5 cards, and then as he depletes his hand, he can only redraw again to 4 when he's down to 3. And this one here is a big deal as well because he can swap a card from his hand with one in the tableau, and he can do this before he plays a card in response to Violet, for example, or when he wants to play a card first. He can basically gives him a choice out of 8 cards, which is a big deal when you're playing with a hand of 4. Then this one here, that's an interesting one. I'll leave this for last. This one here, if it's revealed, it just simply advances the lantern by 2 spaces. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I'll show you how this works in a bit. This one is interesting. You would place it on here, cover 2 spaces, and replace it with 1 space. So it's the opposite of this one. It actually makes the lantern track shorter by 1 space, which we've seen is a big deal. because we were at the situation where I think we were here. Yeah, we were here. So if this had been on, that would have been a loss. So she would have had to have rested before, which is again not great for her. This one here is it's called a howl in the night, and it scares away the helpers. So you usually, if you're Torek and you want to play with this one, you usually want to have it on this spot here. Not necessarily. It would be recommended to do it here, I think, but if depending on what you play with, you might be okay with using it later. But what it does is when it's triggered, it just scares away all the helpers, or whichever are still on the board. And so you can combine all these things in different ways. You can do time pressure, for example. You can use this one, and I would probably put this one here. So if you dealt these, this would be an interesting combo. So you're depriving Violet from saving light, and I think we got this one here. We did this one, right? From saving light from these ones. So you scare them all away. She might have been past the first or sometimes even the second one already, but still, the fact that you deprive her from that opportunity is a big deal as well. So this would do that, and then you would show her, now not only will you not save any more light, you also have a shorter track. And then at the end, boom, out of nowhere, if she was like somewhere here, she's like boom, boom, 1, 2. Now you've got even less time. So you have like all these different combos where you can play on putting a lot of pressure on Violet's time management, which is the lantern, and then rely on the card effects to manipulate your hand. Or you can do like we did, which I thought was quite cool, like this board manipulation here, with making it longer, and adapting the colors to your hand. Um, and then the card management style here as well. And then of course, you can combine in different ways. You could, for example, do something like I think this might be a really interesting combo as well. These three, so 1, 2, and 3, where you make the lantern track shorter and you add, you deplete the lantern by two units, and on top of that, you make the path longer. So effectively, you will force Violet to rest maybe 1 or 2 times more often than she would normally, which then often gives you the advantage token because of that. So you're kind of forcing her into a playstyle that she wouldn't want to do, which is giving you a little bit more control in terms of cards than what you would normally have as Torek. So you see there's loads of different things. This one's quite interesting because the way this works is if we have the 2 slots here, when it's triggered, and normally I think Torek would use it as a third, but you might use it as a first one even to just to kind of mount the pressure because it puts a lot of um, it literally it's a pretty scary one because what happens is you can put it actually anywhere you want. You would put it anywhere between here and here. It makes no sense here, so you would put it probably somewhere here. Because what happens is, as Violet journeys on, especially towards the end, like we had, if it's somewhere here, let's see if this actually works. I'll just put 2 random cards here. Okay, so this would actually work. So we would have lost the trick to Torek. So these slide down, this comes here, and she's already here, quite far. And the lantern may be here, so this would have been a difference of 6 plus 2 is 8. So we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's too much because let's say, so this one dropped off, so you got 6 plus 2 is 8. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, and this actually, it's the fear token that triggers this tile here. So when the fear token moves on or past this, it immediately activates the next slot, and we would resolve this one as well, which is 9. 9 minus 8 is 1 plus 2 is 3. So it actually 1, 2. It would get him the victory. If he doesn't win like this, so let's say the difference hadn't been enough for Fear to catch up with Violet, then he's in trouble because he's now got an empty Fear slot, which will give Violet a big, kind of a bolster in terms of losing a turn to Torek. Because if she does, then this slides down, but there's nothing here for it to drop off, would not advance for one turn. It wouldn't advance, which is a big deal for Violet, and she might win the game just because of that. So it's a very gambly type of thing, and you would probably want to play it with a little bit more experience when you have a better sense of how to gauge the way that progress of game. So there's lots of interesting things you can do with Torque, and they're mostly designed to cater towards a playstyle. If you like hand management, you'd want to go for certain things. If you like board manipulation, you do that. But then, of course, you might not always be get dealt the tiles you really like, and then you have to improvise and see how you get on with that and clever card play, etc. So this is it. Violet and the Grumpy Nisse. Hope you enjoyed the playthrough. Again, it's a fast game when you play it face to face, so don't be intimidated by the length of the video. But yeah, check it out. Subscribe on Board Game Geek, and if you want to support us, that would be awesome. Of course, any questions you can post them below the video here, or Board Game Geek, or YouTube, or wherever you're watching it, and get in touch if you have any questions about the game. So hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you on the next video.